Awesome. Got the audio going here. Hey guys, how's it going? Once again, this is I guess the second vlog entry I'm going to be making on my South America trip, and I just want to reiterate that all of this stuff is a one take process just so I can get these stories out and express how I was feeling at the time when I was hanging out in Mancora. That was the next city I ventured to in my South America trip, and so I'm just going to actually give a quick read on my journal here, and I got some highlights on the things we did. But I just want to talk a little bit about what Mancora was like, just from remembering it after I read this journal entry. And it was really just like a small beach town on the north coast of Peru. Party city, maybe not. I was definitely a local tourist attraction. Was one of the hostels that had a poolside right by the beach, and there was a great breakout there, so a lot of the surfers were coming in and partying in the evenings. And there was a little town there with markets and amazing food. But I actually ended up staying in a hostel about a 5 to 10 minute tuk-tuk ride away up a little bit further up north on the northern side of the bay. It was called Misfit Hostels, sorry. And it was amazing. I mean, I sat there and it was basically a bunch of little shacks on the beach, with a communal shack right on the beach and a platform that overlooked the break. And you would wake up every morning and just kind of hear the sounds of the crash of the waves come and go and come and go. And I remember I was spending a week here. I spent 6 days in Mancora, and most mornings I would get up, walk on the beach, go for a morning swim, come back, eat some breakfast. And one morning after my morning swim, I came back to this platform that overlooked the bay and the ocean coastline, and this flying V of pelicans just flew right over me. I still remember it to this day. I was just sitting there in a very meditative state and watched these pelicans, come from behind me and really take me off guard and surprise me by the beauty of like these humongous birds that just swooped all the way through and down the coastline, riding that wave of wind that they were, way up there, about 40-50 meters in the sky, and just riding that current all the way down the coastline. It was really quite a cool experience to see. But one of the definite highlights of hanging out in Mancora was at the hostel. There was a bunch of little puppies that had just been given birth, and we were playing around with these puppies, hanging out in the sun and the sand dunes right beside the hostel there. And in doing that, there was some great company that I got to meet. I actually ended up meeting two friends of mine, Jack and Joe. At the time when we met at this hostel, they were just talking about how they were going to be moving back down from London after this travel trip. They were going to be heading to Vancouver and looking to live in Vancouver long term. And so we ended up connecting, and long story short, we're definitely still friends. I hung out with Jack last week, and Joe I see every once in a while, but it's it's such an amazing experience to meet people down traveling who are coming around and living and moving around the world, and then you end up becoming friends with these people you never would have been friends with otherwise. And it's just been really a special thing for me to have made those friendships down south, and they actually come back to Vancouver and they're moving there, and now we continue to be friends ever since I guess 3 years ago when we met traveling. So that was really an amazing time. The other thing that really happened that was notable in Mancora, it was really just a very chill surf town, very relaxing. There was not a lot going on, and that was the purpose of spending about 5 or 6 days there, was just to mellow out. But in Mancora is really where I dove in and enjoyed the pico sours. I never really had a lot of pico sours, or very good pico sours that I can remember, because that was the first time I really had consecutive pico sours by the pool and on the beach, and just kind of got to know everybody that I was traveling with at the time. And we went out and we tried to do a little bit of surfing and boogie boarding, but it was a very, very busy surf town. And as you may know or may not know, surfing is one of those things where if you can't get up on the wave, then it gets kind of difficult to get on a wave where it's very crowded, because there's a lot of other experienced surfers that want to obviously take that break and get on that wave. So that was a pretty cool, notable experience. I do remember getting a tuk-tuk back from the main part of the city down over towards the Misfit hostel where I was staying, and I think it was the first or second night, and this guy took us down this very, very sketchy back road that didn't seem like it was going quite inland, and we were on the coastline, so I was very confused as to where we were going. And we sat there, and he pulls over, and his friends come, and you see this other tuk-tuk like coming up behind us as we pull over on the side of the road. We have no idea what's going on. We think like, oh my goodness, okay, there's another group of guys coming here. We're going to get mugged and we're going to get, dragged off into the bush. We have no idea what's going to happen here. And I guess turns out his buddies just wanted to give him some stuff and be on their way. And so I guess that was a really valuable lesson for me. I mean, I was just fearing fear for the sake of being fearful that these people were out to get us. But in the end of the day, it was just a convenient stopover on the way to our hostel because he was in that side of town to grab some stuff from a friend on a Friday night. So it was kind of one of those things where I looked at it and I went, holy, my mind had such a negative energy bringing into that experience, and in the end it was actually all right, and everyone's intentions in that space were totally pure, and nobody was actually trying to hurt anybody. It was just all a figment of my imagination. So it was really interesting to experience that. I remember 3 years ago being very scared, very similar to the time I spent in Italy, in Bologna, and having to hop that fence, and kind of same memories jotted in my head whenever I tell that story or this story, because I sit there and I go, people don't necessarily think like, hey, these people are just people and humans are humans, and they're just here to make their life a little easier. Not everyone's out to get you all the time. So especially when you're traveling, I think it can be hard to remember, that when you spend so much time living in your home country or your home city, and you think traveling is this big, audacious, crazy thing to do, and there's a lot of fear that goes into, what if this happens, what if that happens, and those things can happen for sure. But, I think there's a lesson to be learned in just being optimistic about where everyone's intentions are, that you're traveling with, in the community of people that you're surrounding yourself around in those local travel areas. So it was really cool to share Mancora with 2 friends and meet those friends and have those friends back in Vancouver now, and also to just really start to dive into what the coastline of South America looked like and see what that surf culture could potentially be. I mean, I did want to get down there and learn how to surf. Unfortunately, I couldn't really do that. And that was pretty much like the gist of everything that happened in Mancora. And then once I left Mancora, I got on a 22-hour bus ride to Guayaquil up to Ecuador. And I'll tell you guys a little bit more about Baños, which is where I was heading next. But in Guayaquil itself, I mean, that bus ride, I don't have time to talk about that on the next stint, but the bus ride was amazing. I was sitting in a VIP bus ride overnight with a lazy boy chair, and everything was very glamorous and easy to cope with. That 22-hour bus ride, I mean, I grew up on the buses playing hockey, but this 22-hour bus ride was relatively easy with some books. The only thing that got really tricky was when I got into Guayaquil. I was dazed and confused. It was about 5:30 in the morning, and I didn't really know and remember that I was going to be in another country. And at 5:30 in the morning, there's not really generally that many places to exchange money. So I had all these Peruvian pesos, and I had no US dollars for Ecuador. So luckily, this really, really wonderful local woman who was just at the bus stop was able to exchange me some money just so I could get on the next bus, basically, and transfer over into where I was heading, which was Baños. So I'll tell you guys a little bit more about that story later, but this was a bit of a shorter entry in Mancora. Really just it's a super chill surf town with amazing street food and a very local, small nightlife, but very fun small nightlife with all the tourists and the travelers who are backpacking through Mancora, surfing a little bit here and there as they go. So I hope you guys are appreciating these vlogs, and I'm going to still try to keep pounding these out. And till then, we'll catch you guys next time. Ciao.